Yeah. So listen, I was just listening to this guy who is, my voice is hoarse. I apologize to everybody. Being a football coach is really bad for the throat, but I was listening to this guy who's been in old media and new media for decades. Doesn't matter what his name is. No one's heard of him. But he said just in a show today that the most important thing to do in your show is to lead off with the most interesting topic of the day. So, what is the most interesting topic today? And let's try to be honest here.
Oh man, I mean,
let's really be honest. Really dig. I mean, open your soul. Okay, what is actually March 28th, Thursday today for Michael Weimer the most interesting topic?
To be honest, I hate. I want to get to the Candace Owens stuff.
I hate.
Yeah. Just in general, just hate. But
you hate my favorite topic, dead babies, don't you? You hate talking about dead babies. God, you're so
the city hall, the Crocus City terrorist attack is kind of an anomaly and something that's been puzzling me that I'd like to talk about because I thought ISIS was defeated and now ISIS is apparently taking responsibility for this attack. But is that actually what's going on?
Because the dead babies are brown? Is that why? And the Russian children are white? Is that what's going on here?
We're talking about white dead babies.
Is that the hierarchy here? Let's just, I said be honest today. Okay.
Yeah.
The answer is
when the babies look more like me, I start caring a little bit. Yes.
Well, I mean, of course, first of all, that's not just separating that from the silly conversation. That is not crazy to say, of course. That's what I think most people do. There's always one of the lame arguments about the Zionist side has always been, why are you picking on us? Why, Israel's made mistakes, they say, just like any other country, why is it, of course, they're always saying, it's because we hate Jews. So yeah, I mean, it's important to know who you hate. Anyway, so what are you saying here? It's the Candace Owens story for you? Crocus City would be second. Dead babies.
Crocus City's number one, honestly. Crocus City's number one.
No dead babies. No brown people care. No. If bad things happen to brown people, basically what you're announcing to the world is you don't give a shit.
I think, my problem with the Candace Owens story is that I don't want to platform anti-Semitism, and I think.
Do you know what? We won an award. Did you know that the show won an award last year?
We did. Did we win a Griffey?
You didn't. No, this is a legit award. It was from the Kanye West Foundation.
Yeah.
No, they gave us the award of Kanye West Platformer of the Year. So I think what you're saying is a little disingenuous, sir, because we have been known not only to platform and promote anti-Semitism. I mean, we have drooled over it. Speaking for you, for a couple of years now.
It's not.
Or is it just because he's black? Is that because he's black you can be anti-Semitic? Is that?
No, it's because he's the number one artist in the world, and he basically openly declared war against ever having record labels represent him. And he has reinvented himself as the number one artist in the world completely independently.
Number one song on the charts today is Kanye West, Carnival.
Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago. Metro Boomin and Kendrick Lamar.
I mean, he was a year ago. Yeah. Think about this, right? When we were talking about having him on this show, when we were talking about him on this show, and showing clips of him on the show with Nick Fuentes wearing the mask, being like this close from, schizophrenic homeless guy on Market Street in downtown San Francisco. I mean, he was that close to that with $1 billion. So give that guy $1 billion. That's what we call it. A year ago, and now he's got the number one song in the world.
Yeah. Why did you ever doubt him?
Well, no. This is about the morality of Americans. We're a gutter people. How do we let him a known hater of the state of Israel, have the #1 song in the world within a year of just being Hitler.
He wasn't Hitler. He was doing a performance art thing to bring attention to the allegations against P. Diddy. And he did that Hitler? A year and a half advance.
He wasn't Hitler. Where are you again? You're in Southern Indiana, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you tell us quickly about the history of Southern Indiana?
The greatest place in the world.
Tell us
known
again.
For prominent figures like Jim Jones.
Keep going. What's it known for? Southern Indiana, the last 100 years. What do we got going here?
Renee Girard studied here. Harpo Marx studied here.
Excellent. Oh, you allowed a Jew in. You allowed a Jew to. Okay. All right.
We did.
And
out of the graciousness.
And how about your government in the 1920s?
Mm-hmm. There were some white progressives here that ran a certain organization. The Protestants got a little out of hand at one point in our history. Yes.
Okay. I was about to say they were progressive, but we got to do a course on the KKK, and I think I'm going to do that. But they weren't actually. They were anti-progressive. So to study the Ku Klux Klan, the history of it's a good case study in populism, because they were absolutely a populist organization. And you know what? I've since Palestine jumped off, I have been just becoming increasingly communistic. So what I want to say now is that, and this is true, and I think I said it before a couple months ago on the show. The 1920s Ku Klux Klan, which was one of the biggest social organizations in the history of the United States, it had 6 million members in the 1920s. My family was almost certainly in Southern Illinois, right near where you are. Almost certainly somebody was a member. It does bear many resemblances to the contemporary MAGA Trump movement. And that's partly, it's shocking in part because people don't know the history of the KKK, and they assume that in the 1920s, it was just running around killing black people and hanging them from trees and castrating them. But actually did very little of that. They were very uninterested in blacks by the 1920s. They were obsessed, though, with immigrants. So most of the lynchings, most of the harassment, most of the attacks done by the KKK, when it was at its largest in the 1920s, much larger than in the 1860s when it was about killing blacks, was directed at Italians and Jews who were immigrants, especially in cities, because the Jews and the Italians, and this is not an exaggeration, would bring in the 1910s and 20s and 30s a jazz club, a dance hall, or a movie theater between 1910 and 1940. This happened in basically every American city, over about 10,000 people. A Jew or an Italian brought to every city, small and large, in this country in those 20 years, a dance hall, a jazz club, or a movie theater. Meaning they owned them, they brought them there, right? And what happened was, during those 20 years, 1910 to 1930 years, 40-ish, even through the war, bottom line, to cut it short, white women lost their shit sexually. So the flappers were just a piece of it, right? The massive popularity of jazz and dancing and all things black culture in the 20s, 30s, and 40s was incredible. Even my racist cracker grandmother from Southern Illinois, basically the kind of Klans people you hang out with, even she was into swing dancing. And I said to her, Grammy, who that was, right? Who made that music? And she didn't want to deal with that. She wanted to talk about Glenn Miller. So there you are. I mean, populism has been from the get-go, in part that, but the anti-immigrant impulse is the same. It remains. Do you want to defend your racism now, or
what do you think about the role of Birth of a Nation? Right in the chat, somebody brought it up. The role of Birth of a Nation, the first ever feature-length film, the first ever blockbuster, with the historical authority of Woodrow Wilson giving it credibility. So you have all of the liberal establishment of Hollywood and Washington, D.C. coming together to create the greatest spectacle that the world had ever seen up to that point. It goes city to city, and right as you're leaving the theater, you get. I always draw this comparison. Imagine going to Star Wars, and then as you're leaving the theater, you get to sign up to be a Jedi. That's what it was like joining the Ku Klux Klan in like 1919.
But it's not cosplay this time.
Yeah.
We need to do some cosplay. I want to see like some Instagram hotties doing some clan cosplay. Clan cosplay. You know, it's about time for some sheets and hoods and robes and shit.
Yeah, just covering the nipples from
it could be super hot. I'm just saying, everybody. I've seen some Confederate porn. Let's go for clan porn. Why not? If we do the Confederate, why? 1914, Birth of a Nation. Yeah. So the central, I would say, argument in Birth of a Nation is if or when you release the Negroes, they will rape your women. That's it. I mean, that's really the argument, right? Which now it turns out, as I've said on this show multiple times, to no controversy, which is odd. I wonder, are people watching this show? Because I've said this, was not entirely irrational, because there was a lot of rape of white women by black men after the abolition of slavery. Sorry, it's just true. I got the documents if you want to see them. Does that mean we should have a society governed by extrajudicial lynching, hanging men from trees? No. But trust me, in the vast majority of those cases, you probably wouldn't have been sad about the lynching. You wouldn't have. So yeah, 1914. So that's the argument in that movie. D.W. Griffith makes that argument saying, yo, these people are savages. You let them free. Worse yet, you gave them political power and political rights. They now run some governments, or they did during Reconstruction in the South. The South Carolina legislature was a majority black. It's amazing. During Reconstruction, the 1870s, the South Carolina legislature, was a majority black. It's craziness. The lieutenant governor of South Carolina during that time, immediately after slavery, was black. People went from being slaves to being basically heads of state overnight in the 1870s. And what you had is a raft of corruption and other stuff. Not so much by the politicians raping white women, but yes, that went on, of course, because you had elevated white women as the ideal woman figure, sexual figure in Southern society, while saying that is the absolute taboo barrier. And
I think the central thrust of the movie Birth of a Nation is the argument they make is that Abraham Lincoln was tragically assassinated. The whole first half of the movie builds up to that. And because Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, there was no civilizing force to keep the South and the Union in a state of reconciliation and to civilize the black man before they get liberated.
What the fuck, Weimer? Are you like, you're out, you're coming in, you're out renegating me here. Are you saying that Lincoln was actually, wait, say it again. Say the argument. You're saying that.
I think in the movie Birth of a Nation, the historical argument, or the thing that's being said there is it was Lincoln's assassination that kept the South from reforming with the Union, because you lost your civilizing, rational leader who could have led them through the war, who could have brought the Union back together, and who could have civilized the slaves.
Okay, so I get it. Yeah. So you're saying that Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith, the two most notoriously racist things in American history, these are in every American textbook, by the way. Every American history, everybody listening to this has heard these names because of this. They try to make these people and this film famous for this reason. You're saying that movie actually argued that D.W. Griffith, arguably the most famous, or one of the most famous American racists, actually viewed Lincoln as essentially a savior of the nation?
Yeah. I think that's the whole point of the movie. If you actually sit down and watch it, is that
dude, listen to me. Hey,
without Lincoln,
hey,
savages run wild.
Hey, little man, don't you talk up to me. I taught this film at Columbia University. Okay, I don't know, but that's in the Ivy Leagues. And I went all the way through it every time I taught it. I did not know. Wait, wow, what a fucking amazing. And now I got to watch this again. The problem with that movie, honestly, it's boring. It's really hard to, that when I taught it, my students were just like nodding off on their desks because it's like also really long. But holy, really?
Yeah.
Griffith? Well,
Griffith wasn't a racist. Griffith wasn't a racist. He just wanted to tell the most compelling story that he could with the art and with the medium of cinema. The result was scenes of racist propaganda, like the most emotionally jarring. You feel the pangs of real evil of racism. It's in the movie. You feel it. But he was just on his own trying to create the most visually captivating story he could possibly tell. So he has to paint the bad guys as the worst that they could ever possibly be, and he has to paint the good guys as the best they could possibly be. And this lost causeism is really something invented by Woodrow Wilson, who is the historical authority that is cited in that movie at the very beginning to give credence to the novel. And it's all about how, because Lincoln was assassinated, the savages ran wild and the eternal curse of the South, and you needed this new knight to lay order to society again.
So why did you choose to be a black drummer when you could have been an amazing white professor? Why is this? Why the black drummer thing? What's that about?
Why the black drummer thing?
When you're that smart, like, I don't get it, man. Wait, holy fuck, dude! You just like came out. Is this? Has anyone else argued this? Like, because you're probably right, knowing you, but like you just like overturned an entire like. There's like a whole shelf in every library. I promise you, everybody listening, go to your local library. There will be a whole shelf of books on Birth of a Nation. I'm not joking. You just overturned a whole shelf in the library of historiography. What?
You need to watch it like 2 or 3 times. You need to watch
liberal. Birth of a Nation is liberal. Basically.
Yeah, he even made, what's the movie? D.W. Griffith made Tolerance, the next movie. He made like a whole movie apologizing for that movie, like next, where he talks about Babylon and racism. Like,
what's the second most famous thing about that movie is that Woodrow Wilson showed it in the White House.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Who's Woodrow Wilson? So you're making me rethink this cat I've thought about for, God, too many hours of my life. Who is Woodrow Wilson? A son of Virginia, of the Confederacy, who had some, what we would call like straight up scientific racist views, but also invited Booker T. Washington to the White House and was all about uplift of the African-American and assimilation and making them, sort of integrated to an extent. But Woodrow Wilson was that. And he was also more famously, he was the father of American progressivism. So he was the great, in a sense, reconciler, right, about the Civil War.
Yeah.
Because he's a son of the Confederacy, very much. Although he kind of comes from an evangelical liberal background, but he's still essentially a Confederate dude, in terms of his spirit, his heart, right? But he reconciles the nation through progressivism, through state intervention in the political economy. So we're going to remake this country and make it wealthier and more powerful. And of course, World War I and then the American Empire is really accelerated through him. So we're going to.
He resegregated the federal government too.
Yeah, I mean, so what the story here is that the progressives, who begin basically in the 1880s, they go through 2 phases, I think, on this. So it's a little confusing. They flip on race and what to do with the Negroes. So from 1880 roughly till the World War II, that's where they are. They're like, get them into the federal apparatus, maybe, but they're basically inferior. They subscribed absolutely to eugenics, first of all, and of course to scientific racism. Progressives, almost to a person, all the famous progressives of that era, including Woodrow Wilson, Teddy Roosevelt, Margaret Sanger, you name it, tell me one, and they were racist. I mean, scientific racist. So they wanted to be nice to these organically benighted people. They wanted to treat them well and like integrate them as much as they could. Being perpetual children is how they thought about blacks and other races. And then they flipped in World War II because World War II, and I've said this a zillion times before, but yes, so World War II had to be about about race. It became about race to justify it, to get people interested in it, to get people to be willing to fight in it. They had to become about this heroic war around saving a racially victimized people, etc. And so progressives they just changed, they flipped, and I'm writing a lot on this right now. Like, during World War II, they decided to not be racist anymore. Not only to be not racist, to be anti-racist. So that's when the very germ of affirmative action sort of came up as an idea, but certainly integration, Brown v. Board of Education, assimilation, all that. And so that required you to think of the Negro as the same as you. To get full integration and assimilation, you need to think of them. At least you need to pretend that you think that they're the same as you. So they flipped. And ever since then, since 1945, around then, that's what the whole entire American left has thought about race. So D.W. Griffith was basically a liberal.
Yeah. Again, watch that movie again. Because the first time people watch it, they just vomit at the racism that's in it. And then you need to watch it a couple more times to
and you start to enjoy it.
Yeah, I know. You have to observe it as an artifact and for what it is. After that, but look at how the assassination.
Did you know that the New York Times called us a gateway podcast? Did you know that?
We're up there with
part of the pipeline.
Yeah,
we're part of the whatever X to alt right, new right pipeline. We're part of that pipeline.
Yeah,
fascist X, whatever. Wherever you started, you're going to end up fascist if you listen to us. All right. Well, we covered that ground. What's in the news?
Yeah. Well, again, I don't want to talk about Candace because I don't want to platform anti-Semitism. And I think Candace was very irresponsible with platforming Rabbi Shmuley, who is I think it's he's obviously a Gentile.
Hamas is paying him. Hamas is definitely paying him.
Hamas is definitely paying Rabbi Shmuley.
They've got Hezbollah, Hamas, the Iranian government, the remnants of Al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, all those organizations are funding Rabbi Shmuley. I promise. What else could be happening right now? The problem is, see, I was loving him until a few days ago when he was just dragging Israel into the mud with his nonsense. I thought it was wonderful that they had the worst possible spokesperson in the United States for them. But now, he's dragging my people down by, I don't even know what to do with the Jewish stereotype video he did
on Purim.
On Purim, where he dresses up as the sort of classic elder, or what's it called, Protocols of the Elders of Zion Jew from the thing is that shit's all out of date. Same with the people that, the people who talk about, systemic racism against blacks, and they hunting this out here. It's all their references and images and symbology all are from the 1950s or earlier, right? Always. It's always slavery and Jim Crow, slavery. Yeah, but what about now? Same with Rabbi Shmuley. No one has, which significant cultural figure has talked about or drawn a picture of a Jew like that since 1930? Not even way before World War II. We're talking about blood Ford back in the day kind of shit. Jew with the long nose and the dollar signs and the filth across the whatever, drinking Christian blood, children's blood. And yeah, we read about them in the history books, bro, but no one thinks that way now, except for maybe 25 of the remaining members of the Ku Klux Klan in the trailer park in Alabama. And and those people have never seen a Jew. So they wouldn't, if Woody Allen walked by them, they'd try to recruit him. They wouldn't know what a Jew is. So it's a non-existent thing in the United States until Israel starts to say that everything that they do is in our name, in the name of Jews, to save Jews, to protect Jews, which I guess means me, my son, my mother, all the Jews I've known and been related to. Okay. And then so what we're doing is we're basically drinking the blood, not of Christian children, but of Muslim children, not drinking, but, spilling it and you're in the name of all Jews. So if you're a Jew in the world, there's this nation state there that gets all this approbation and support from the United States of America. Well, they must be the Jewish nation. And so that if they murder children by the tens of thousands, then that means that's a thing that Jews do. And so now you're a Jew. So yes, anti-Semitism is on the rise because of the state of Israel. That's a little side rant. We got to talk about Barry Weiss. I know you're on something else, but
oh yeah, well,
we got to get to her at some point. I mean, I
don't think she's that important because
she is.
it's to be expected from her being anti-free speech. If I see my bigger problem in the Candace Owens story is the Daily Wire, which is kind of obvious, being this, like, if you saw how the Daily Wire was formed over the last 5 years around anti-college censorship, pro-free speech, anti-cancel culture, Gina Carano, we're going to champion her. Oh, Jordan Peterson, we're going to champion him. We're going to champion all these right-wing edgelords who can say whatever they want. And then they're the ones firing Candace Owens. They're the ones. There had to be a backroom deal with Ben Shapiro because he won't talk about this issue at all.
It's almost like there's a Jewish global conspiracy that supersedes everything else. It's weird. So there is, everybody. There's a couple of them. There are two global Jewish conspiracies that have been active and powerful and have shaped much of world events over the last at least 30 years, but you could certainly argue over the last 100 years, but over the last 30 years, there's no doubt. There have been two Jewish conspiracies. And this means like two groups of Jews who have launched very successful campaigns, which they claim whatever on their own behalf. Those two are Zionists and neocons. So neocons, as many people know, were basically all Jewish in their origins, Jewish intellectuals from New York, who one of their first political awakenings was falling in love with the state of Israel. And ever since then, since the 1960s, which is when they fell in love with the state of Israel, especially after 67, the Crystals, the Podoritzes, all those people, and the Zionists have been very, 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 very powerful through the Israel lobby and through the neocons, various think tanks, etc., in Washington, to advance a whole bunch of foreign policies that have served the state of Israel and U.S. imperial interests simultaneously. But yeah, my buddy, who's a 100% Jewish professor at Wesleyan University, I won't name him. I remember at the time, sociology professor at Wesleyan, New York Jew himself. He said to me about the neocons, this is during the Iraq War, he said, yeah, it's a Jewish conspiracy. And I was like, what? Yeah, it is. That meaning like not every Jew gets called up, on the phone. Not every Jew gets invited. Max Blumenthal's never been invited. Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro has never been invited to this cabal. None of the guests on my show recently, the kids in Israel who refused to serve in the IDF, they were not invited. But there have been a few groups of Jews who have, yes, absolutely gained incredible outsized power in geopolitics and American politics and in shaping the whole world, and especially in the Middle East. Jewish conspiracies. They do it, and they're doing it, the neocons and the Zionists. The Zionists are honest about it. The neocons less so. They're doing it through and for a sense of Jewish identity. I mean, that's what their politics is essentially about. Read Irving Kristol, read Norman Podhoretz, the founders of neoconservatism. Brooklyn Jewish boys who discovered that they sort of gained their sense of being Jewish in the 50s and 60s when Israel was born and Israel was fighting to survive and winning wars. They talk about this. And that's when they decided to become essentially neocons and support an American empire that would support A, the Jewish state, and B, the rest of the world in becoming America. So yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a couple of Jewish conspiracies that are very, very, very powerful and prominent, and we need to talk about it and we need to take them down. But I know an equal number of Jews who are opposed to the whole thing. And in fact, most of the analysis I just gave you comes from Jewish academics and intellectuals. I mean, to say the dumb right wingers don't understand that part. They don't understand that most of the right wing's best critiques come from Jews, like Murray Rothbard, for instance, right? The smart ones do, but a lot of the dumbasses don't. They don't get it. Jews are either your best friend or your worst enemy. You just got to choose carefully among the Jews.
They'll give you whatever you want.
I'm saying there's a Jew for everybody.
For everybody, yeah. Whatever they're middlemen.
Whether you want to be like a Zionist neocon imperialist, or you want to be a communist, or you want to be a libertarian, hello Murray Rothbard, or you want to be a capitalist and fuck politics altogether. If you want to have a career in pornography, if you want to go into filmmaking, yeah, there's a Jew for everybody. They're awesome people.
Yeah.
The thing is, that's what and a lot of Jewish anti-Zionists have been saying this over the last 6 months, is that's one of the things that annoys us. I'll say us, I guess, because I'm a quarter, whatever I am, quarter Jewish anti-Zionist, is that the goddamn project besmirches us and makes us look stupid. Like, forget about murderous. It makes us look stupid. I mean, the propaganda coming out of Israel is so laughable. And I mean, Jews are the most intelligent and funniest ethnic group ever. And that's not Israel. That's not Israel. And intellectual and curious about the world. That's not Israel. That's not a nation state. And it's certainly not a nation state in perpetual war. In a way, Israel's like, and a lot of anti-Zionists have said this, I mean, Israel's sort of almost like repudiated what it is to be a Jew. Reversed it, inverted it or something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Jewish identity is wandering without a home.
Right.
Yeah.
The perpetual outsider, which makes us smarter. I mean, it does. It makes outsiders are always the most intelligent observers of any society, of course. Mm-hmm. And Jews until 48, but I would say even since that, you know what? Israel is an amusement park. That's essentially what it is.
It's like gay marriage. It's like once you get it, like gays become domesticated. They stop being gay. They become like everybody else.
They love to talk about how it's a nation of refugees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, for about 3 years there, you could argue that for sure. Come on now, ain't no refugees in there now. No, it's an awesome place to live. It's super fun, great beaches, hot chicks, etc. But it's built on a pile of corpses. Okay, which, whatever. So is our country. But the thing is, the corpses here are dead. There, they have immediate relatives who live next to you. So anyway, what else? Blacks and Jews, we covered that beat. What else? Candace Owens. She's out because she doesn't like Israel killing babies. By the way, her anti-Zionism comes straight from seeing videos of babies when she just recently had one. I heard her say that.
So? Yeah.
No, I heard her say that, basically.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
The videos just fucked her up. Mm-hmm. Which it's not exactly why I want how I want them to make a decision about this or take a side on this. But on the other hand, I kind of like, that there's a heart there. So where are you going to
go? About the Candace Owens thing, she did a media tour, and it's interesting how people are trying to smear her. Like, she went on The Breakfast Club, and basically they just tried to berate her as not a black person. Yeah, they tried they tried to give her black church sayings and see if she could finish them, and she couldn't. They asked her
because Charlamagne's from the South, isn't he? He's from Carolina, I think.
Right? Yeah,
North Carolina. So he's yeah.
And Candace Owens, I believe, is from California.
Is she? No, Connecticut.
Connecticut?
Yeah. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm 90% sure she's from Connecticut. I heard her talk about her background once upon a time.
Yeah, Stamford. Oh, yeah, with an M.
Stamford, yeah, middle class Connecticut, not rich Connecticut, but solidly middle class. Sure, so what? I mean, so what? That's a shitty argument. I mean, or attempt to. It's ad hominem. It's just an ad hominem argument. So she doesn't know church saying, so therefore she can't speak on like racial politics. Okay.
And since you brought up Ye,
what an embarrassing. Well, she must have been mortified.
What was embarrassing
for her? That thing on the Breakfast Club when they were like bringing up church hymns and stuff. Negro spirituals.
Like,
oh, did she?
Yeah, she's just like, okay, I guess I haven't been to enough black churches. Like, so what?
That's good.
They grilled her about her interracial relationship, that she's married to a white man, and that
again, wow, great. Yeah. That's the liberal response to the right wing. Good.
Yeah,
it's just more racism.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not really black. Okay. That's the answer. That's the response to all of her critiques. And I am not a Candace Owens fan. Trust me, I am not. She's maybe right now the leading American Puritan, which is an honor that is bestowed by me upon one leading American every year who advances the agenda of Cotton Mather more effectively than anyone else. Candace Owens, every time, I would say 1 out of 2 times I see her videos or clips or tweets, it's denouncing a porn star for being a porn star and warning women to not be promiscuous. That kind of thing. She does an incredible, and then the whole Rabbi Shmuley thing, which of course, I agree with her on some of it, but much of her critique of Rabbi Shmuley is that his daughter has a sex toy business. And she goes on, and the filth of dildos and butt plugs. Excuse me, really? Are we opposed to dildos and butt plugs? Is that how many of your right-wing wives have dildos and butt plugs in their nightstand? So yeah. So I'm not pro Candace. I don't like anybody in this fight.
Dang, I see her on par with Kanye and Kyrie in just moving black thought towards independence. That's the criticism, though. Like, what was it? And she's won Grifter of the Year, I think, several times from the Hoteps, and I think deservedly.
Did I give her that? No. Who did I give it to? I was their first.
Sean King, right?
Sean King. I was the first presenter for the first Grifter of the Year award. And it was Sean King. That was fun. But Candace, they hate. Well, I know they've always hated Candace. I don't know. She's not. Okay. Yeah, let's not talk about Israel anymore. What's next?
All right. The Crocus Concert Hall. I'm still. Okay. Yeah. Like, is ISIS back, or what the hell's going on here?
So before we get to the geopolitics, just number one, I would say in the last year or two, there's been a market acceleration in, what would you call it? I'm sure like semiotics professors have multiple terms for this, but there's like is it stochastic terror? The number of videos of people being murdered, killed that I've seen in the last 2 years is like exponentially greater than the preceding 56 years of my life. And I'm sure everybody on Twitter can agree with me on has the same experience. All of a sudden, why did Elon send us all those channels on our algorithm that are about street fights, which I kind of like until I see like a girl's head getting bashed in and her writhing on the street and convulsing. And that's just one of many, many, many. The Crocus City Hall attack. Yes, we have multiple camera angles we didn't used to ever see the actual shooting ever in news stories like this. We never ever saw the actual shooting. Now it's like, oh yeah, you see the bang, bang, fall down, whole thing. Yeah. Blood on the floor, the whole thing. I mean, it's just, And I'm wondering what that's doing to me, and I'm wondering what that's doing to everybody. So that's number one. Number two, my second thought about it was, who the fuck would do that? It's one of those things that I could never ever relate to on any level whatsoever. Killing random strangers, many of them for money or for anything. I just can't relate to it. It's not even about morally judging. I just don't get it. I'm not from a place like that mentally at all, so I don't get it. Have I wanted to kill people I know personally? Oh yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. I ain't no pacifist. I might even be a latent murderer, but like, I'm not gonna about killing random strangers. No. So poverty were they all from Tajikistan? They were from one of the stands, I think. Incredible poverty there in those areas. They said they got paid not that much money. I forget it. I think it was 1 million rubles or 500,000, which is not. It's. I think it's like the equivalent of like a middle class salary in America, in American dollars. It's really kind of shocking how little they did this for. All right, so that's that. The geopolitics of it. So, you know, the analysts who I follow, the so-called realists and the anti-imperialists, are split on this. There are many people who are arguing pretty strenuously that CIA or MI6 were behind it in some way or another. I need to see a whole lot more. I doubt it. The CIA has done some incredibly crazy shit in the past. I don't see how this would have been advancing their purposes, but I could be wrong about that. So like Scott Ritter is saying that, for instance, if people want to know who I'm talking about. I think Larry Johnson, also ex-CIA guy, big geopolitical analyst on YouTube and podcasts. I think he's also saying this, or at least strongly suggesting it. And then and then there are people who are strongly suggesting that, of course, Ukraine was behind it. And I haven't seen confirmation of this, but the early reports were that the 4 guys were captured on their way to the Ukrainian border, but they weren't Ukrainian. In fact, they weren't from anywhere near there. And I just don't know. I mean, the FSB, God help these guys. They are getting, I can't imagine what the FSB is doing to them around the clock, but the FSB will find out whatever it can from them. I can pretty much guarantee that. So we'll know. We'll find out. Victoria Nuland, I think a week before she resigned or resigned, issued a couple of statements, public statements, in which she said that there were nasty surprises coming for Russia. Now, she was talking about U.S. aid packages, military aid packages, and saying on the battlefields, let's be all clear about this. She said on the battlefields, there will be nasty surprises for Putin. A lot of people have been saying that she was kind of signaling this attack. Now, Aaron Mate very intelligently said, why the fuck would Victoria Nuland signal that she's behind a massive terrorist attack right in advance? Why would she ever do that? It's very stupid. So there are some people on my side, on our side, on the geopolitical analyst, anti-imperialist, realist side, are kind of stupid. Let's be clear. Every political side you're going to be a part of is going to have some stupid people in it, even among its smartest. So, ISIS-K, the Aaron Mate has also argued, again, solid argument. I'm not necessarily persuaded by it. Neither is Aaron, but he says that if it is ISIS-K, makes sense because Russia did what in Syria recently? They were brought in specifically by Assad to fight against ISIS in its attempt to overthrow the Assad government. So yes, the Russian military killed a lot of ISIS fighters, a lot of ISIS people, and makes a lot of sense that ISIS would want to get some revenge. Now, the thing is, ISIS has been dormant and basically non-existent. I mean, it's been since Mosul and Raqqa, since Trump destroyed them in Mosul and Raqqa in the last standoff. And that ended, I think, in 2017. Yeah, it was the first year of Trump. He wiped them out within a year. And we've not heard from them since. So that's now we're talking 6 years since we've heard anything from ISIS at all. No one even knew where they were. So that's reason for skepticism. Were they actually heading for the Ukrainian border? I want to see confirmation of that, but that would be reason to suspect, Ukraine might be behind this. It's most likely Ukraine, because have they done stuff like this before? Yeah, they were launching drones into Russia. They were launching military sort of militia incursions into Russia, into Belgorod, especially, which is on the border, sending these fanatical Nazis into Russia and attacked villages, killed civilians, killed a bunch of people, damaged some stuff. Yes, they've been promising terrorist attacks in Russia for years, since the beginning of the war, really. They even had a video, an ad. The Ukrainian government, and I posted it on Twitter. This is like early on, the first year of the war. It's a whole like very slickly produced animated video showing a Ukrainian drone taking off from Kiev and then going into Russia and bombing Russia. Like, it was this cool thing to do. Meaning civilians, most likely. So it's a fanatical government. Elements of it are fanatical. We've known this. Not Zelensky so much, but elements within it, especially in the military. And people don't understand that there's Zelensky, the civilian government, and then there's the military, which is essentially a parallel government. And those two are often at odds. And that's kind of what's been happening in the last 6 months, is that Zelensky's been trying to destroy the power base within the military that challenges him. But in the military, yes, Zelensky's Jewish and sort of liberal and all these things, and much of his government is basically that kind of person. But the military is not that. The military, the Ukrainian military, has been dominated and many times run by straight up Nazis, like actual Nazis, guys who wear the actual insignias, but they're Nazis against Russians, not so much against Jews or gypsies. They believe that Russians are an inferior race and they want to obliterate them from the face of the earth. I mean, they are that racist against Russians, meaning the Ukrainian military, the Azov Brigade Battalion, just the most famous example. But we just have so much evidence of this now, including Zaluzhny, the head of the military until recently. He's well known to be very much a part of the Stefan Bandera tradition in Ukraine, which is outright Nazi, fascist, anti-Russian, racist. Are those people capable of doing something like this? Sure, of course, obviously. They've celebrated it, no doubt. Killing Russians is a good thing. They believe Russians are what? Orcs. They have a name for them. It's nigger for them. That's what they call, that's nigger that they use for Russians. It's that racist. Even more than American racism, because it's actually genocidal. It's actually homicidal, genocidal. They actually want to eliminate and kill all of them. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say, so if I were a betting man, I'd say it's like 60% Ukraine possibility, 30 to 40% ISIS possibility.
Yeah, Russia is now alleging that it was Ukrainians. There are some ties to Ukrainian nationals.
Well, yeah, I mean, that serves Russian interests, though. So I take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, they're probably right. Again, like, recently, over the last 2 years, at least, certainly, like Putin's analyses, the Russian government's analyses of geopolitics and what's going on in the war, I agree with. That's just because I happen to agree with them, not because I'm some natural ally with them. But yeah, they're probably right here.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about torture. And the perpetrators were detained by Russian officials, and you were talking about the videos of the attack itself, but the videos I saw were videos of the detainees getting their ear chopped off and fed to them. And
there's a video of that actually happening? Or after?
I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing. I mean, I don't dwell on these things, but
I didn't know there's a video of the ear being chopped off. I saw the video.
I'm pretty sure I saw a lot of pixelated images of that with that headline.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if that's 100%, but I saw pixelated images with that headline and an opening scene that pretty much could have been that. And then him handcuffed, and Daryl Cooper gave it the caption, the person I'd least want to be in the world.
Saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Do you think you can trust testimony given under torture? And there's also allegations that they drugged these detainees to get a confession.
I mean, I think studies have shown that you cannot trust testimony. That's true. So I guess what I said about the FSB getting the truth out of these guys. But I think that a combination, well, no, they're going to get a lot out of them because first of all, they can isolate all four, that old tactic of isolating the four.
Yeah.
And then comparing their stories, you're going to get lots and lots of information. And yeah, they'll probably give up some things that are true and some things that are made up, but they're going to, FSB will follow every single lead. And so the ones that are true, they'll hit on, and the ones that aren't, they'll pass on, whatever. So it eventually, yes, of course. No, it's not irrational to torture people who pose an existential threat to you. And these people do. I mean, you know, these are actual terrorists who killed close to 200 people, civilians, for fuck's sake. You know, am I gonna cry about that? I mean, of course, it's just rational. And if they're not going to give up any information if you don't torture them, here I am, John Woo, Bush administration, making the argument again. No, I mean, if you're actually under threat existentially, like Russia is essentially from Ukraine right now, not like the United States was from Iraq, but if you're actually under existential threat, yeah, torture. I mean, wouldn't you support? Who wouldn't support that if your life was actually being threatened?
I have libertarian instincts to defend the Eighth Amendment at all times. That
doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to Browns in other countries. It only applies to our Browns.
I know.
No, I mean that. Well, okay, I got you. It's a universal principle for you.
Well, I just think it's worth discussing, and I think it is possible. To get a truthful confession from torture. I think the arguments used to against it don't necessarily hold up, but also, the attack is in line with Ukraine, right? Because, like, basically, since they're losing the war, they've resorted to attacking civilians, right?
Yeah. So the term that Victoria Nuland used on her way out was, quote, asymmetric warfare. And that term has been used multiple times by like think tanks and pro-Ukraine outlets, et cetera. And I think even maybe a Ukrainian official or two. Asymmetric warfare. I mean, we know what it is. And they've been doing it. They've been doing just terrorist attacks. That's all. It's terrorism, state terrorism. And so the only question for us as Americans is how much is the United States helping them do that stuff? If they helped in any way with this attack, then that would be a scandal that could bring down governments. But I mean, I'm almost positive that they're helping in some way with the German generals caught planning bombing the Kerch Bridge. You know, I'm sure the CIA was aware of that. I mean, it's a NATO country. I mean, and all these crazy attacks inside Russia by these militias and drones. Come on.
If it is ISIS, is there still some responsibility for that on the U.S.'s end, funding ISIS and proxy wars in Syria?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The U.S. mostly funded Al-Qaeda against ISIS, but yes, there was plenty of money going around to all the factions. Yeah. And then, of course, I mean, the bigger argument about the U.S. creating ISIS, I think, that's more compelling is Iraq. I mean, the Iraq War is what created ISIS, making that massive power vacuum in that area, in that region, and basically inviting Islamists to fill it is what happened. There's no question. I mean, no one would deny. In fact, I've heard like proponents, even Bill Kristol, I think, agrees that ISIS is absolutely a product of the Iraq War. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been created if not for the Iraq War, if not for the United States invasion. So yeah, of course. I mean, we are the dominant empire. We are in every country. We have bases everywhere. Of course, the United States is going to determine much of what goes on in the world. Yes. there's a whole bunch of idiots who were sort of like these soft ass, like Michael Moynihan, soft ass defenders of the American empire, who are always saying, why is it always America's fault? Why is everything America's fault? And I'm like, well, because it mostly is. Like under Rome, you know, I mean, do you say like Gaul took some responsibility for what happened to them? You know, no, Rome was the dominant empire, and the United States is how much more powerful than Rome and how much more pervasive than Rome? Yes, of course. The United States did determine a lot of this stuff. Yes, it's essentially created indirectly ISIS. It created the conditions that made ISIS all but inevitable, I would say. And everybody says that who studies this. So here we go again. It's just we create messes, then we have to go clean them up, which creates more messes. Then we have to go clean those up. It's this endless cycle of empire. It's the same with the Brits, same with the Spanish, same with the French, same with the Belgians. This is what they did. They would go establish an empire, a colony somewhere. The indigenous locals would rebel after a year or two or five. Then they'd send in troops to quell the rebellion. And then that would lead to more rebellion down the road. And then they have to send in more troops. And then they have a revolution and they get thrown out of the country. That's what happened here. That's what happened across Africa, Asia, Latin America. And that's what we're doing right now. The thing is, we are just stretching it out, boy. We're just bombing the shit out of these people, sending troops in every 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, just war after war after war, until I guess we have no money left in the bank and no one in America is willing to fight, which, by the way, is coming soon. I haven't seen the numbers, but I keep hearing about the crisis of recruiting in the U.S. military.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have numbers on that? Have you seen numbers? But it's bad. I know it's bad because they're all freaking out about it. But of course,
I don't have any to list off, but every week I track this. Yeah.
I mean, but of course, look at the kids these days. Does this seem like a generation that wants to get in a uniform and go to war somewhere? I am no longer complaining about Zoomers because of that. You know, it's true. They apparently are the least militaristic of every generation we've had. I mean, partly it's because they're out of shape and they play video games, and that's really all they want to do. I think that's a big part of it, but also they're just not interested in being regimented. You know, your generation is very opposed to regimentation, which I dig. So what do you think?
That's part of it. I always bring up that the families of the South who have fought the wars for this country aren't being represented in the military anymore, and they're realizing that the federal government, United States military, doesn't serve their interest anymore. That it's openly hostile to their culture, and that it's endangering their lives.
The MAGA base. This is why Trump gets all the veteran support.
Dude. So something I always point to is the movie Richard Jewell that came out in 2019 about Clint Eastwood made a movie, and this was like the big conservative movie of that year. But the whole point of that movie was you can't trust the FBI anymore, and you can't trust the media anymore.
Wow.
And so we're
prescient.
Yeah. We're 5 years into conservatives not trusting these huge institutions like the FBI because of how they've turned on Trump. And we're into, General Milley and Mad Dog Mattis and the wokeification of the military.
Hadn't thought of that. I mean, so that accounts for, right. I mean, that's a huge chunk. It's the families who are traditional military families who are, I think, mostly South and Midwest. I think that's probably true. And we know that demographic, Southern, Midwestern, working class, traditional military families, is overwhelmingly Trump country. And we know what Trump country thinks about the military these days. Not only that it's woke, but that it is selling out American interests, right and left, and engaging in and getting our boys and girls killed for no good reason in these forever wars, et cetera, et cetera. Good old populist anti-imperialism, I would call it, or at least anti-war sentiment. And so that would translate very quickly into, you know what, son, maybe it's not the time to join the military. There are a bunch of drag queens up there. And you're going to get sent to Ukraine for no damn good reason to fight for that Jew Zelensky. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not go that far, but no, I mean, they just don't see a reason. And they see it as a big scam. And God bless them for that. And that would account for like a huge chunk of the recruiting base is the MAGA base, right? That's where you would get most of your recruits, I would imagine. God, I never thought about that.
What was it, 2021 when
Wow.
Biden. I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
Dude, that's huge. Like, I wonder if someone's written on that. Because that can take down the entire thing. Like all the bases will close down if the Trump youth don't want to join the military.
Yeah.
The whole thing falls down if all the kids in the South and the Midwest think it's bad to join the military. You're toast, bro. You can't launch any war.
Yeah. Chat saying Daryl Cooper has talked about it.
Okay, good.
I always bring up Brian McClanahan. He's talked about it, and he always talks about it whenever a military base or something that was named after a Confederate soldier gets renamed. You're basically telling everybody that if the politics of your cause run out of fashion, we will dishonor your memory forever, and you can't be trusted to serve your country and be honored anymore.
Now, I want to see data on this, though. We're speculating. I don't know. I haven't seen data. I just know there's a crisis. I don't know how bad it is. I don't know the numbers. I don't know. What I want to know is how many Trump voters, I guess, are choosing not to join the military for political reasons. I guess that's the question. And I have no idea. I haven't seen those numbers at all. We're guessing that those are big numbers, but I don't know.
Also, Biden's in the White House right now, so that's only accelerating things. Like, you don't want to. Yeah.
Right. You'll fight for that dude. Yeah. Fight and die for Joe Biden.
Go check out the reception that Donald Trump gets at the Army versus Navy football game.
Huge.
Yeah. And compare that to Biden. Whenever Biden, what was it? At an inauguration where he had to shut down the whole city of Washington, D.C. and bring the National Guard in. The National Guard was sleeping in like parking garages and got like fire festival level of like cold, wet sandwiches and were treated horribly. And those stories passed on and they felt used. And so that has to be contributing to the culture in the military right now.
Oh, I hear. Yeah. I mean, every time you listen to MAGA talk, Bannon or whoever, it's half the time it's about this. The military is not who we are anymore. We are no longer the military people in this country. They were. I mean, that's the Trump base. It really, that's who would send their kids into the military is Trump people, not my people. No one, I've never known anybody to send their kid into the military. Not one. It's kind of amazing. The bi-coastal elite doesn't do that, but it's the Midwest and the South who do, especially the South.
To bring us full circle, Democrats are wanting to exchange citizenship for service. That's been an idea that's been floated around a lot.
Oh, sure.
To immigrants. And
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as immigrants are being brought in, like that's just getting paid to do the job for your country is one of the surefire ways to level up in the middle class. So that's
the classic progressive answer to everything is you assimilate the browns and the blacks, the immigrants and the blacks aggressively, and you do it through the major institutions. So you get that's why Brown v. Board of Education happened. The schools, second major institution. First one was the military, 1947. Harry Truman desegregated the military to get them in and to assimilate them. That was a huge part of it. And so progressives, the liberal left in this country, have always loved the military for that. They never would understand like what a brigade or a battalion is or what tanks do, but they love the socialism of the military, and they love the radical integration, the racial integrationism of the military. And so that's why they've been all about getting blacks into the military, to assimilate them, to make them into good, full, freestanding citizens, first-class citizens who really do want to be here and really do honor America and really want to be a part of the American project and want to do work and public projects and serve in government, all these progressive visions for Black people. They want them to be part of government, essentially, to participate. And you do that by assimilating them and making them into Americans, especially in the military. And if you look at this, the products of this over the since 1947, there is an entire class which is very separate from the rest of African American society, of Black military families. They're all on their own. And by the way, you see this a lot in athletes. There's a lot of sports stars who are from military families, I think for some obvious reasons. But these people are middle class. They're what you would call assimilated. They're not from the hood. They don't speak hood. They don't have like necessarily a recognizable Black accent often. And they have two parents in the household. Very, very different. And they're, of course, extremely patriotic, generally very good law-abiding citizens, right? Career military families. And there's a lot of Black families who have done that, and they're totally different and separated. That's a progressive project. That is Harry Truman's doing. That is the idea of all the Democrats, progressives since 1947, is to integrate, assimilate those Black people via the major institutions like the military. And it's had a major effect. Now, I don't know, it's not exactly like my idea of utopia, living on a military base, but those people chose to do the people who chose that life did it voluntarily. They chose military life and they got benefits from it too.
I want to ask, what do you think you call the post-war order, like the post-World War II order? I think like white supremacy is actually an accurate term to describe the United States up until the post-World War II, when things get flipped around. Yeah. How do you describe like the ruling class and their interests now? Like,
so this is like Dan Bessner and I discussed this. Like, what is motivating the ruling class of America now, especially around foreign policy? Like, what do they want? And so from the founding fathers until at least Donald Trump, through Obama, clearly every single president and almost every senator was guided by the vision of America as the father of the world, right? That old evangelical imperialist vision. Trump never was a part of that. He never understood that, never bought it. Biden is probably a part of it. But do Biden and Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom and Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer, are they really evangelical in that way? Do they really want to remake the world in America's image the way that Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy did? I don't see it. They seem completely like cynical hacks to me, like with no beliefs whatsoever, except like for their
careerists who are operating on that ideology because that's what was established for them as a model.
Yeah, so they're kind of just speaking the language now without really believing it, or like following, or what is it in religion, right? This happens in churches all the time. People just follow the scripture without really believing it, or recite the scripture without really believing it. So like, yeah, why are they supporting Ukraine? Why are they supporting Israel? I mean, do they think they let the few true believers who are the neocons are ideological, right? That's the problem. The neocons are the last ideological American exceptionalists in foreign policy. They're the last ones who are evangelical, want to remake the world in America's image. And they, through their little conspiracy that we discussed earlier, have managed to gain control of the levers of power in foreign policy. And so American foreign policy is basically not run by them, but it is heavily influenced by them, and they are truly ideological. Now, everyone else, though, like the Bidens, like the Harrises, like most of the Democratic Party, like most of the Republican Party, I guess they get bullied or cajoled by this faction, and so they think that Putin really is that dangerous and evil and satanic and etc. And they really think that Israel must be supported no matter what it ever does, even though it serves zero strategic interest for the United States now. It's like a zombie foreign policy, right? Based on the ideology of the last 200 years that's now exhausted, and what many people are arguing with Ukraine, with Israel, the ideology of saving the world, of American exceptionalism, all it's doing is getting America into more trouble, getting us deeper and deeper into conflicts that could result in massive conflicts that could really end the empire by exhausting us with another war. So I guess that's what I would say. I don't know what these people think, what they care about. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems increasingly Soviet. That makes sense. Like, yeah, literally parroting the party line until nobody remembers what it means anymore.
They believe that America should lead the world because they were told that America should lead the world. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's that. Yeah.
They don't know how to operate any other way. Like, this is the correct answer to AP US history is that America must continue leading the world. And right. So what do?
You know, Peter Beinart is a public intellectual, and he wrote a book 15 years ago, in which he made the argument that the Democratic Party and liberals should renew the idea of liberals and the Democrats leading the American empire, the American imperial mission. And he thought at that time that the American empire was a force for good in the world. And he wrote a whole book making that argument. That was in like 2005 or so. That's the last time I remember any real intellectual argument made by a liberal for that position, for America to be the global hegemon. I haven't seen it since then. It's been 2 decades and they've given up, but they're just continuing because they know that's sort of like the catechism, the religion. And so they just keep going like a zombie nation.
Mm-hmm. Like, why would you voluntarily give up power? I think that's what it boils down to, I guess.
Well, I mean, power is having a military base in Okinawa. Is that power or is it a liability? You know, is it power or is it like exposure to threat? Is it power or is it a massive ongoing expense to fund the thing? We have 500 of those bases all over the world, and every one of them costs a lot of money and a lot of people. So power, I don't even know. And when we use these bases to conduct military operations, we lose. We've lost every war since World War II. Every war we've lost: Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, all of them, Afghanistan. I mean, there have been a handful of tiny military operations against like Somali pirates that were successful, but the big operations were all complete failures from those bases, operating from those bases, massive failures, famous battle failures. No, there's just, it's kind of amazing. And Dan Bessner and I talked about this, like why this thing continues. There's no strategic value in any of this anymore for the United States, unless you are a true believer and you believe that God wants America to lead the world, which is what they actually believed for 200 years. American leaders thought that, and they said it. God wants us to do this. We got to go into other countries and have wars and manage other people and overthrow governments and stuff. Like, because God wants that. We're going to civilize the world. It's us. It's our mission.
It's like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party both agree on what to do. But the Democratic Party does it with like some air of cynicism or like without any ideological boundaries, so it looks smarter to people sometimes. And Republicans can pretend to be true believers and actually still believe in the nationalism that underscores it all.
Well, again, I mean, the Democrats invented it. They created the empire and they created the arguments for it. Hardly any conservatives or Republicans ever made like an argument for the American empire. No books, no articles. I can't think of any conservative intellectual who's made, except maybe Bill Buckley. William F. Buckley might be the only one. No, it was Roosevelt, Wilson, Truman, Kennedy, Johnson, Obama. Like, it's those people who built the empire. And the Republicans, the junior partners in that, and say they don't have as much to say about it. It's not their thing. They went along with it. They're for it. They agree with it. They support it. Sometimes enthusiastically, like John McCain. But John McCain never said anything. He never put two ideas together to explain why we must do this. It was always just, oh, bad, evil people over there. We got to go deal with them. He never made an argument for why America should be dominant in the world and why we should manage the world. That's always been liberals. Obama, I said this on Rogan, and Rogan was like blown away by this. When he first ran for president when he was running in 2007, one of the first things he did to announce his candidacy as president was he published an article in Foreign Affairs magazine called Renewing America's Leadership, in which Obama makes this very detailed, logical, clear argument for why America should rule the world. I mean, he like understood the script. He understood the game, what's required. That was the first thing he did to announce that he was serious about becoming president. And it's an argument. It's intellectual. It's serious. I mean, of course, I disagree with every word in it, but you got to take it seriously. Republicans and conservatives don't do that. And for one thing, many of them have been opposed to the empire. But the Republicans and conservatives who have been for the empire have been, by and large, intellectual midgets, except for, I think, Buckley and maybe a couple others. So that's why. That's why you don't hear much from them. The Fox News arguments for wars is what you get. You know, Saddam is bad and has got weapons of mass destruction. We must kill. No, we want arguments about, the good old arguments from liberals about like, there are the benighted people, the poor, the oppressed, who must be saved, and they can only be saved by us, by the powerful, and by the people with good intentions who are Americans. Americans have good intentions, and we have the ability to carry them out. And so we should. I want to see that argument. No, it's just a zombie foreign policy, a zombie imperialism, a zombie empire. That's what the United States has become. It's become a zombie empire with no guiding philosophy. Now, the guiding philosophy I hated and I've devoted much of my career to overthrowing. But a zombie empire might be even scarier. There's nothing to argue against. It seems unstoppable. It seems as if it will not respond to any material conditions changing. It won't change when they lose wars, when thousands of people get killed for no reason. They would just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep regurgitating the same mythologies to justify the policies, like Putin is a madman, Hamas can't be negotiated with, radical Islam is a scourge that must be destroyed, etc. So there we are.
Yeah. You talked about Gen Z. Not wanting to sign up for the military.
Looks like
Florida passed a bill where anybody 14 years or under with a social media account will get banned. We've talked about the universal push to ban TikTok I think these Republicans are trying to keep Gen Z from getting based online. I think they're not trying to protect your kid from becoming trans online. I think they're trying to protect your kid from seeing a podcast like this and becoming based and questioning things about World War II and questioning founding principles of the whole empire and the whole project.
Really? You
Yeah.
think like the DeSantis people?
I think so. I think it all boils down to Israel for them.
Oh.
Yeah, with TikTok.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We didn't really talk about this angle, but it's pretty obvious.
The Jewish conspiracy is everywhere, turns out. Wow. That's interesting. I hadn't thought that. I'm sure it's part of it. Had to be at least a part of it, the motivation.
Yeah.
Because that's what TikTok was doing recently.
Mm-hmm.
It was turning your generation against Israel.
Yeah.
More than anything else, probably, right? Like TikTok was killing Israel.
Mm-hmm. And do you know what's going viral right now on YouTube? AI translations of Nazi speeches, Gaddafi speeches, Stalin speeches, where AI translates the speech into English and uses a voice matcher to do the speech in their own voice. And so you can hear in English, in the person's own voice, what they were actually saying. An hour-long extended speech of these historical figures, and people are being shocked that it isn't what they're told it would be.
So it's like the Osama brief love affair on TikTok, that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which apparently I've heard someone say that I was overblown. It wasn't actually that many people.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know.
It wasn't that many people, sure. But it was a moment, and it might have been a Streisand effect where just talking about it, or what's the other word? But just talking about it perpetuated it. And it seemed like it was something manufactured for that story in particular, which is what I think we talked about in our analysis. But
yeah, maybe.
These these AI history videos are getting a lot of play.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So Stalin people are a fan of Stalin now, and Gaddafi and Mao. Who else?
Hitler, Goebbels,
Genghis Khan. How's he doing?
Yeah.
Is he in there? Pol Pot.
Mm-hmm.
People fans of Pol Pot now. They want to return to year zero.
Mm-hmm.
Love that idea. Going back to year zero, that was a cool idea. We're all going to be agrarian peasants starting tomorrow. It'll go great. Fields of skulls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Okay. So, I'm the guy who wants to look at the most taboo things and think about them seriously. Take them seriously. Not necessarily agree with them, but just take them seriously. Like, for instance, everyone should read Hitler's speeches. They're fascinating. And the guy was a very serious thinker, and they're far more complex than people understand. He was violently anti-Semitic. Yeah, from the beginning, no question. And he was also fascist. Yes, no question. But there's a whole lot of critiques of Western imperialism in there that are dead on, and you won't find anywhere else. And it'd be good to understand, even if he wasn't right, what Hitler was actually thinking. Same with Stalin, same with Mao, all of them. But you'll always find critiques in there that are pretty good, about our own society. I don't look to Stalin to help explain to me the virtues of communism in the Soviet Union. But when he's looking across the ocean at the United States, his perspective is actually quite useful and often quite right. And so there's usefulness in that. The thing is, these kids are doing it on their own, without any guidance, without any guideposts, without any politics of their own, without an analytical framework. And so I don't know. It's not so much that I'm afraid they're going to become communists and fascists. I just don't think it's going to stick. I don't think they're going to see anything interesting or useful in any of this stuff that's going to make sense to them in any sort of long-term meaningful way. But if they had a teacher who could say to them, listen, there's things to look for here that are actually valuable, even if you want to reject all of it. I mean, reject it overall, but still find some useful analytical bits in it. That'd be great, but they don't have that. So that's the problem.
And then last thing on people using the internet for their own purposes and the war on that. The Huberman story, New York Magazine did a cover article giving all the salacious details about his personal life to assault his character and make people not believe in doing your own research on science anymore.
We haven't talked about Diddy.
Oh, Diddy. We haven't talked about Diddy. What?
It's the war on black men.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you think? I think Cosby was the war on black men. I think Diddy has what's coming to him.
No, I think this is actually a war on rap that's beginning. I think R. Kelly was the first. And I think what's happened, and this is scary, I think it's going to get bad for a lot of rappers, big time people in hip hop. Hip hop's been pretty immune from that kind of stuff, amazingly, for the last 20 or so years, maybe because of racial politics shielding them from stuff. But I don't know who it is. There's some prosecutors, and actually this is DHS. That was Homeland Security that went after Diddy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some people in the federal apparatus, I don't know what's going on there, who I think found out about the sexual activities of some of these major rappers over the last couple of decades. And I'm betting anything there's some feminism going on here. I bet there's some feminists in DHS and maybe some federal prosecutors who have some feminist motivations for this. They've heard some really gross stories about what's happened with women at Diddy's house, which no doubt, I mean, I can't even imagine the bacchanalia that's gone on there. Does anybody seriously think that he forced women to have sex against their will? Sex trafficking, really? Does anyone think that there were women who were actually enslaved by Puff Daddy? No, he just treated them very rudely. I mean, I'm sure, right? So no, but this is going to continue. I think there's going to be more big busts and hits on big hip hop people because they've been kind of, I mean, yeah. I don't want to say getting away with it because I don't think there's been anything really necessarily wrong, but there's been a lot of stuff that will piss off Puritans and feminists big time going on in hip hop. And I think they're going to start cracking down. And the fact that they sent military trucks and like SWAT teams and the whole nine. I mean, military invasion. Come on. They're making a statement that they're going hard on these people.
Yeah.
And R. Kelly is going, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And they're trying to do the same thing to Puff Daddy. I mean, if he really enslaved some women, good luck convincing me of that. But I do think there's going to be more of this. And I do think it comes from those twin evil forces of anti-sex Puritanism and anti-sex feminism that often join forces in these cases. So Huberman, same thing. Huberman's Carrie Howley wrote that piece. So she used to write for Reason magazine along with her husband, Will Wilkinson. And then they left Reason maybe like 10 years ago. And they became like these really gross shit libs who just advance major sort of feminist, social justice, establishment narratives. And this article on Andrew Huberman in the New York Magazine it's about him being, well, the worst thing he does in the article is he has multiple girlfriends simultaneously without some of them knowing it. Okay. This is a cover story. This is New York Magazine. This is like major podcaster needs to be, the world needs to know about that. How many men have done that? Is that how common is that? Like how big, and why does it matter? He's a health podcaster who's had, multiple affairs with women simultaneously. Okay. And what? Again, it serves only one purpose, which is the purpose of Cotton Mather, channeled through Gloria Steinem. It's feminist Puritanism. That's it. It's feminist, misandrist Puritanism, anti-man Puritanism, straight up. It's just they're coming back. Me Too was the last time they had a big pogrom against men. And then other issues have crowded it out, like COVID, Gaza, whatever, race stuff, Floyd. Now they're I think they're making a play. They're trying to come back and get us, man. I think that's what I mean it. There's going to be a concerted movement in the media, and then maybe within government too, clearly, to take down men who feminists disapprove of sexually. It's that simple. And I wish them nothing but eternal torment. The people who do this, the Puritans who do this, I have nothing good to say about them. I used to like Carrie Howley. I think she did some good work. I think it's disgusting and pathetic, sexist, grotesque, authoritarian, terrorist bullshit. And she should never be allowed to. She should never do any journalism again. And if she ever wrote about me, I would never give her the time of day. I mean, she should be shunned. She should be ignored. She should be, and New York Magazine too. I mean, it's just a ridiculous, horrific. I don't care about Andrew Huberman. I don't know anything about the guy. I've never listened to his podcast. I have no idea. It's an attack. It's an attack on men and men's sexuality. That's what it is.
This is like a Daily Inquirer level story.
Yeah, it's grotesque. He didn't. He didn't even cheat on anybody. He wasn't even married. He just, it wasn't a good thing necessarily, but he didn't tell someone. So what? Okay.
I think it's also part of a broader war on information. I think they're trying to attack his character so people don't research on their own opinions about science, and that he was somebody who brought opinions about science to the public that may not have gone through the correct channels.
How was he on COVID though? How was he on COVID though?
He avoided it. He didn't really talk about it.
Oh yeah, but maybe that may have been part of it. I mean, we know that it's establishment media, New York Magazine, feminists, Carrie Howley, and we know that demographic hates the guts out of independent media men, the Joe Rogans of the world, on a smaller scale, the Thaddeus Russells of the world. They just hate this whole thing, this whole organic ecosystem that has grown up in the last 10 years or so. They hate all of it, in particular because it's especially masculine. Sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
You gonna say?
I do want to say, and I think Andrew Huberman's done a lot of good work. That
I don't know. Okay, I believe you. I have no idea. Cool.
I think he's helped a lot of people do basic things to make themselves healthier, and he's gotten that information out to a lot of people. And simple things like going for a walk 15 minutes a day, becoming a borderline viral trend, or like just getting more sunlight, having somebody from Stanford say that to you to give it some authority behind it. I think he's done a lot of good work. And I think the people at New York Magazine have a lot of resentment for somebody who helps the lives of men like that.
Wow. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Well, defend him then. Yeah. Let's defend him. All right. I would defend him anyway, no matter what. Even if he were an idiot, I would defend him on this.
I didn't like him before this. And I didn't really, because he was a science guy and I hate science, but.
Me too.
Yeah.
Science is for other people to do. All right, we're going to go hang out at Unregistered Live. If you want to hang out with us, become a patron. There you go. Just join up. Patreon.com/unregistered. Become a patron, and you can hang out with me and Michael after this show on Zoom. It's just a meeting, hour and a half every Thursday. Patrons and I and Michael hang out, talk about anything. It's very loose, freewheeling. You can be totally anonymous if you want. You can come and just hang out and watch or participate, ask questions, whatever you want to do. So do that. It's a lot of fun. It's called Unregistered Live, and hopefully I'll gain my voice back. Michael, thank you, man. Great show. You're the best. Really fun. And I'll see you soon.
Peace.
Okay. Peace.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Switch. There we go.